Hello, everyone. Rabbi Nathan Zaboulani here, learning with you the commentary of Rabbenu Avraham and Harambam on Parashat Mishpatim. We'll be focusing on the end of the Parasha, a very strange, very difficult to understand passage in which most of it we will not go into, but specifically we'll be focusing on the Atzile Bnei Israel, these nobles or leaders of Bnei Israel who seem to have been in a situation which maybe warranted them being punished, but for some reason in our Parasha, they are not punished. And we'll see different opinions and the opinion of Rabbeinu Avraham as to why that is the case. Let's familiarize ourselves with the story and the Pesukim. Vayal Moshe v'Aharon Nadav v'Avihu v'shiv'im ziknei Yisrael. Moshe, Aharon, Nadav, Avihu, and the Shiv'im Zekenim are all together here, going up on the Har Sinai, whether this is taking place before Matan Torah, after Aseret Dibor, whatever it may be. There is a collection of these individuals. They're coming together and they are having some form of a revelation. Vayir'u et Elohei Israel. They saw the God of Israel. Now that is quite a problematic statement in the sense of what are they seeing if God is not physical in any way, shape, or form. V'dahad raglav kim'aseh livnat hasapir. What specifically they were witnessing and seeing here or understanding here was ma'aseh livnat hasapir, some form of a blue item, resembling some form and way of the shamayim, the heavens. We're not going to focus on this pasuk because it's extremely difficult to understand properly, but we're going to go to the next pasuk as to what happens. Whatever it is that they saw, lo shalach yado, God did not punish them. They saw God, and they ate and they drank. Very difficult to understand Pesukim here, but let's compartmentalize and focus on what we do see over here. We see in the yellow over here that Shiv'im Ziknei Israel are joining Moshe and Aharon and Nadav and Avihu in this adventure. We see that Atzile Bnei Israel, probably these very same Shiv'im Zekenim, are not punished, and that they see God and that they eat and that they drink. So we're going to look at a very interesting, almost a mahloket between Rambam Maimonides and his son, Rabbi Avraham ben Harambam, on the way that they understand these Pesukim. Maimonides, Rambam, along with Rashi, who we're going to be reading, seem to view this whole story as extremely negative for the Zekenim, for the Atzile Bnei Israel. And Rabbeinu Avraham ben Harambam sees it, in fact, as quite a positive direction. So we'll see how these interpretations take place and are rooted in the text. We'll really focus on Rashi. Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim, Halak Aleph Perek He, really says very similar to what Rashi is saying, where Rashi has a very succinct, and we're going to read it on the words, Vayir'u et Elohei Israel. They saw the God of Israel. Nistaklu ve'etzitzu v'nitchayvu mitah. They saw and they looked and they're deserving of death. Whatever they did, they deserved death. But God did not want to punish them at that point. Why? Because it's Matan Torah. They're very happy. It's a very joyous time. So he saved the death of Nadav and Avihu for the day of the Hanukat HaMishkan, which is Aleph Nisan, for the Zekenim until the time of the Tave'era, in which much of Bnei Israel were destroyed. So they were also punished at that time as well. Why would they be punished? What did they do wrong? The fact that it says lo shalach yado, right, that God did not send his hand out to punish them, it seems to imply to us that they did something wrong, but then they were spared. Rashi and Rambam explain that they were spared, not permanently, but rather their punishment was delayed. And Rambam and Moreh Nevuchim explains that the reason why they were punished is because they looked or they understood and they tried to perceive that which they were not prepared for. Eagerness, the desire to come close to Hashem is a fantastic quality. But if you are surpassing your capabilities, then it is something very dangerous. And you are entering into territory which you may come out not unscathed. So here, the Zekenim, while they were perceiving some kind of revelation, they proceeded too far. And Rambam explains that it seems that they had not perfected their intellectual faculties, their midot, and thus what they were perceiving and understanding was misinterpreted by them. They were not ready for it. And this is something that we could clearly see in all aspects of our lives, right? It's very nice to be eager and to be proactive and to try to grow. But if you take on more than what you can handle, you could clearly harm yourself. If you lift weights that you're not ready to lift, you could get a hernia. If you swim in oceans or in distances that you're not ready to handle, chas v'shalom, a person could drown. The Zekenim entered into a spiritual ocean in which they were not ready for, and what they perceived and what they experienced was not understood properly. And this was, on their very high level, deserving of punishment because they were not on the high level that they were ready for that experience. Rabbenu Avraham has a different interpretation. He says, Lo shalach yado, why were they not punished? Lo era bahem nezek, they were not harmed. V'hazibah lazeh, shahayu mucharim v'hagunim, no, they were not harmed because they were ready. They were appropriate in their endeavors. They experienced something that they were on the level for, and therefore, even though Rabbeinu Avraham is agreeing here, yes, if you venture out into these endeavors that you're not ready for, you could be harmed. But Lo Shalach Yado is saying, look, they were not harmed. He doesn't have any indication that they were harmed later on, specifically for these reasons. So they were good, they were proper, they were appropriate, even though it was dangerous what they were doing, but they were on the level to handle it. And by Hazuat Elohim, what's going on over here, says Rabbeinu Avraham. He says, they saw God, they perceived something, they received a knowledge and information which was on a very high level. But what's unique about what their level was that while for Moshe Rabbeinu, actually Moshe Rabbeinu's perception was very unique. Moshe Rabbenu, look at the Parasha, it says that Moshe went up on Har Sinai 40 days, 40 nights. Lo hava lo shana, he didn't eat, he didn't drink. What it's trying to tell you over here is that while on the Zekenim, they perceived something that was very lofty, this did not inhibit them from returning back to regular, basic, normal life of eating and drinking. And that's what the eating and drinking has to be over here. It's not that they were inappropriate in their encountering. No, it's just that they were able to perceive something, they learned something, they were able to lahzor la'achila v'shtiya k'mo shenimna Moshe b'she'eri totam 40 yom lo she'achlu v'shatu bahar, right? This is a situation in which Moshe Rabbeinu, he perceived something when he went up solely on Har Sinai further up, and he was so transformed by that experience that he was no longer eating and drinking. What it's telling you over here is, even though they saw something, what they saw, what they experienced was on a level in which did not transform their entire future lives, such that they had to abstain, or that they were abstaining from eating and drinking in normal, regular life. It's not that they ate or drank on Har Sinai and acted inappropriately, as other commentators tried to say, but rather for the rest of their lives, they were not changed. They were able to maintain their normal activities. Another interpretation is, right? The fact that it says that they ate and drank means that they lived, they survived, and they continued on their normal ways, and they were continuing on their ways. So to summarize, we have a very difficult, a very esoteric story going on over here of perception of that which we do not understand. They were able to see something very lofty, something very important. And Rambam, Maimonides, the father, and Rashi seem to view the actions of the Zekenim as very inappropriate, and they were punished for it. Rabbeinu Avraham says, no, they saw what was on their level, and they achieved a very high status. But at the end of the day, unlike Moshe Rabbenu was forever changed by that and was not engaged in physical things like he was before. The Zekenim were able to return to some form of physical normalcy after that. And this is just a little bit of insight on a very complicated set of Pesukim. Hope you enjoyed this analysis of the father and the son of Rambam and Rabbeinu Avraham on these Pesukim. Have a great Shabbat, and hopefully see you next week for Terumah as well. Shabbat Shalom.